Welcome to Dante's Harmony Podcast, your source for music mentoring and motivation. Join me, Dante Harmon, a multi-instrumentalist, recent inductee into the Sacred Steel Hall of Fame, and newly inducted Grammy voting member, as I host a podcast spotlighting sacred steel musicians from all across the nation and abroad. Dante's Harmony Podcast provides insightful interviews, exclusive music, untold history, and so much more. I am Dante Harmon, and I am so excited to dive into some great conversation with two online teachers who are musicians in their own right. You're going to meet them in about a minute, but I'm so glad that they are here with me on today. I believe that you're going to really enjoy what they have to say. As always, please follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Dante Harmon. And if you want more insight and more information regarding Dante's Harmony, please feel free to go to my website, www.danteharmon.com. So without further ado, I am going to bring to the forefront these two brothers. Listen, if you have not listened to the podcast with the Campbell Brothers, where we talked about and dived into some really great conversation about their John Coltrane's presentation from their standpoint, the Campbell Brothers, of A Love Supreme, you're missing a treat. If you have not downloaded that particular CD, you need to do it today. The Campbell Brothers presents John Coltrane's A Love Supreme, their interpretation of A Love Supreme. These two guys that I'm bringing here on today were big contributors to that album. The first person, Daric Bennett, who was on bass and did a lot of production work on this particular project, as well as Carlton Campbell, who was the drummer on this particular project, who I found out did some mixing. I found out that he mixed this project. We're gonna find out right now. Daric, Carlton, how you doing?
My God,
man,
going on,
first of all, it's so good to see you all. How you doing? How we're in the midst of a pandemic. How's the families? How y'all faring?
Doing well, man. God is good, man. No complaints, man. So in spite of it all, I still got joy.
That's right.
Everybody's alive, man.
Everybody's alive and well.
Yeah,
right.
That's a blessing, man. It's so much
definitely
going on, and like you said, we're in the midst of a horrific pandemic, but we're still here. That's a blessing within itself. So
yeah,
absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. So let's just dive right in. I just did probably one of the best interviews that I've done in a long time with your father, Carlton.
Yeah, big up this man. Encourage yourself. There you go, David Harmon. Come on,
in the Lord.
There you go.
Man, listen, we had so much fun conversing. If I decide to do a B-roll take of all of the stuff that we talked about, it will probably have everybody in
I can only imagine.
I can only imagine.
We cut up, man, and the fun part was reminiscing. We were talking about the chosen few. You know, yeah. So you'd have to know the Campbell Brothers to understand what the chosen few is. So, come on, Carlton. I mean,
first of all, being a little baby, man, through that, just not knowing what they were doing, but being around while they were doing it was just crazy, man. And like, I remember your dad being around, and rest in peace, Pap. So rest in peace, Pap, and Charles Flannery coming up, and Calvin, and it was just like, I'm thinking, oh, we about to go to Nashville because everybody's up in Rochester working on this in Chuck's attic, man.
Right.
And people still talk about that tape, but the funny thing is, they don't want to do those songs over. And I get it. It's the season for songs and stuff like that, man. But yeah, it's some songs on there that I wish we would just go back and just touch at least once, man. Just
Yeah, that would be
once,
You too,
man.
Daric.
Like,
You share the same sentiments, Daric.
yeah, that would be. I mean, that would be super cool because, I mean, for one, I didn't have nothing to do with them, so at least I could put some flavor. I could put some of my flavor on there, you know. So you know, it's like iconic to us, you know, coming up in House of God. So that was like our Coltrane's and Ellingtons and stuff like that.
I still tell them to date that it really was, and that's why I still bring it up, because to me, as a teenager growing up and listening to that project, it was everything, because it was everything that we wanted to do back then. They did it, and they did it with the top singers, they did it with the top musicians, and it worked. With what they did in that time that they were doing it, it worked.
man.
They got to do Promulgate, Carlton. They got to
Promulgate. God's gonna ride this train.
Yes, sir.
Calvin already did I Feel the Light Over, so
He did
but
on his album.
He still can do it again on his album.
Do it again.
What's the Jesus? He will answer prayer.
I
wish we would do that one over. I said it's a few of them on there, man. That I just
but my favorite. You got to love your
enemy. Got to love. Boy, don't do that.
Listen, man. That was and Chuck told me, because I said, listen, I want to redo that song. I told Chuck, he said, call Phil. He said, Phil wrote it. I said, what?
Yeah.
He said, yeah. He said, your dad wrote it. I said, okay. And I told them the last time when we talked, I said, I'm gonna redo that song. So y'all just go ahead and give me permission now.
We're gonna have to just have two versions, man. Because I'm trying again, man. It's the family dynamic and the band dynamic is always interesting when you're trying to get points across. So it's like, hey, are you a band member or a nephew right now, or a cousin?
Right.
When you making the suggestion, it's like, no, this is a band member talking. Forget the lineage. I think this is a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Then, all right, now I go back into that nephew-son seat. Now I go sit down.
Right.
But that, again, man, those songs, man, and again, that 87 and just the, like, man, the songs are still relevant. Here we are in 2022.
Yeah.
And those songs still speak to a lot of what we need to focus on.
Hello.
That's timeless music.
It was just as relevant then as it is now. I told them, I said, I don't know if they know what the word promulgate means. So, because I was like a teenager when I first heard it. So when I heard, I was like, promulgate. So it was, so it's really the word means to make known the word of God. So that was the whole hook, promulgate the word of God. So when they did it, my story was from the perspective of my dad, who came in on bass, Daric, and he contributed. But as Phil and Chuck would say, he came in as like a producer, because my dad gave me commentary when I heard the edits. So
man. So on this one, man, we did, and then I told them to, you got to.
Listen, it was hilarious, and they were hollering, Chuck and Phil, they didn't know what to do with that, and they thought it was the funniest thing, but they said your dad was really producing, man, and then he played bass on one of the tracks, and it was one of those staples that you just will never forget. So
never, and we can't. So, hey man, we gonna campaign. Free the chosen few tape. We're gonna start a hashtag or something. I mean, we gotta
straight up. As a matter of fact, when I do this podcast and when this goes live, I am gonna hashtag that saying, free the chosen few.
Free the chosen few, man. Free the chosen few, man.
It was a hot project. It was a hot
project.
Yeah,
man, for real.
But fast forwarding, man. So from the chosen few, and here you are, Carlton, Daric. Second generation, I should say, from our fathers. I mean, all three of us, our fathers. We are next generation, and now we're producing, we're mixing, we're teaching, and we're playing and doing what they were doing, to the best of our ability, the way we do it and how we
Right.
interpret it. We went
Yeah.
from a chosen few to now, John Coltrane's Love Supreme, Sacred Steel, the Campbell Brothers style, which was, let me tell you guys, phenomenal. Um, I don't know where to start with them. I was telling Chuck and Phil, I was really, really impressed with the work that they put in the interpretation, how they were true to the music and his approach. And one thing Phil said to me, he said, no one ever in the jazz world ever attempted to
Right. Yeah.
duplicate that piece.
Yeah.
And for me to see you guys take a stab, not only in doing it, but doing justice to it, and for you two to take on probably the most daunting task, and going into those solos. First of all, let's talk about your Daric. I'll start with you. You did bass on the album. What was your take going into doing the album? I know how long has the recording been since it's
Like you
been
said,
out?
it was 7 years ago.
7 years ago.
7 years.
So 7 years ago, you guys recorded this, and you're practicing, you're doing whatever you need to do to get prepared. But how did you approach this because you want to give justice to the original musicians,
Right.
and
Exactly.
the true art to the jazz voicings and melodic and the melodies to this particular album.
Exactly.
But approaching it from the Campbell Brothers Sacred Steel churchy style of playing,
Right.
what was your mindset going into it, Daric? I'm just
So,
curious.
well, first of all, the great thing about it is that we did it live.
Mm-hmm.
So capturing that, whole entire dynamic live actually benefited us, to the extreme, because we get to feed off of each other
Right.
and not play on top of something and not even get that feeling at the time that we're sitting there. The atmosphere was perfect. Where we were in Amsterdam, right, Carl?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
we were in the crowd was crazy. Just the atmosphere was just ridiculous. So
Wow.
approaching that song, and we'll get into this, I'm pretty sure, later on generally, but as far as a solo goes, specifically, if I could speak to that.
Yeah.
So I didn't really, when I came to and listened to the project, I heard what the bass player was doing,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, this is our interpretation,
Right.
generally.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we made it out to be. So I tried to figure out, okay, what's going on in the song
Right.
specifically,
Mm-hmm.
and try to, on top of that, if you listen to A Love Supreme, there's four different sections. So
Correct.
my bass part is going into the next section. So me thinking, okay, trying to set up the next section while doing justice to the first part, or the first reference that we did with my bass line,
Right.
and kind of play off of the Love Supreme, because at the end of that first section is chanting a Love Supreme, Love
Right.
Supreme, love. We're all chanting that at the same time.
Right.
So just kind of building off of that,
Mm-hmm.
really just a simple, like probably minor pentatonic or minor triad
Mm-hmm.
type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So staying right there and kind of repeating that, so everybody kind of gets mesmerized by the dun 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 dun. And then inverting it, and keep going up and up, and just doing different little versions of that, which was actually pretty simple to do.
Mm-hmm.
But the capturing
Yes.
the feeling of it, right? But capturing the feeling of it was completely different,
Right.
especially for a bass solo. The whole motto and everybody's meme behind bass solos is
Right.
you want to walk out the room when the bass starts going. So to try to make it interesting enough to add some dynamics here, some bending notes, to try to mimic a saxophonist or even steel guitar at the time when we that we're playing.
Right.
Just make it interesting, make it different, not as if it's a bass solo.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what my mindset was, trying to set up the next piece really, and actually staying true to what we just finished.
Yeah.
So yeah, in a
Amazing.
nutshell.
Well, you did justice, Carlton. I think you
Oh,
probably wanted to
appreciate
add
it.
something in there because
Nah, I mean, this dude fake humble, man. This dude, just
I like how you put that. He's fake
a,
humble.
a mediocre, arpeggiation of like, bruh.
Yeah.
7 years later, it'll be 7 years next month. 7 years
Wow.
Crazy.
later,
Wow.
solo still speaks for itself, which speaks to the work that you did, man. So
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Appreciate
Kudos
that.
again, my guy. Kudos again.
Appreciate that.
Wow.
Appreciate that.
Yeah,
And
man.
it's a lot to say about the musicianship on it, and to talk about um, the approach to how you guys were able to learn the some of the standards, and I'm talking to two professors here, when it comes down to teaching music. So I'm sure this was kind of in your forte, in your
Hmm.
vocabulary, something that you were excited about doing. But it took a lot, and I'm sitting and listening to the changes and the progressions and all of the theory that comes out in the playing, and to convert that into how we play the sacred steel style of playing in genre of music, and to interpret it in such a churchy way, and you still get it. You still like the essence of what the real project is. But then I'm listening to the Campbell Brothers with Daric Bennett on bass and Carlton on drums, and it's like, well, I feel like I'm in church because you guys are
Yeah.
giving it to you. Y'all are giving it, giving me that. So Carlton, one of the things your dad said that you did on this project was mixing outside of the
Yeah.
drumming, which we'll
So
get to.
yeah, I was fortunate, and the reason why I say fortunate is because they could have asked anybody to put their hands on the project.
Mhm.
And for those two guys who those three guys at the time, rest in peace, Uncle Derek.
Mhm. Yeah.
For those guys to trust me to sculpt the sound for the project, um, it meant a lot. That was my Grammy, because
Wow.
if my mentors, the guys that got me into this thing called production, that inspired me to be an engineer, and that invested oodles of time, resources, and energy, and made things available for me to do this,
Mhm.
for them to say, "Hey, we're going to give you a shot." That was almost like that was validation of, okay, I'm good enough.
Right.
I
So
made it.
yeah, I made it. Y'all can say what y'all want to say. I know I'm good enough because, Dante, you come from a very freaking musical family, so
Yeah.
you know for a fact how
Yeah.
that is. When,
Yeah.
again, rest in peace, Uncle Ant.
Yeah.
To hear him say you're doing that right. Oh, I don't care what y'all say. I just been vindicated by the goat of goats. God bless
Right.
you.
Yeah.
So for them to allow me to mix that, man, that to mix the project was again, that was like, that's a feather in my cap.
Yeah.
Um
Right.
because again, as I said, could have reached out to at this we could have reached out to anybody in the industry to put their hand on this project,
Yeah.
and they would have jumped at it. And now I will say, it still was an audition. So
Okay.
if things didn't go right,
Right.
They left the door open.
they would have made them call. It's the same thing like in church.
Yeah.
Brother, you playing good, but we gonna hit you with that
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
that shoulder tap. So um
Yeah.
that made me more hungrier to dive in and to service the project as best as possible, so that um one, that could be on my resume, but two, I want to see the project through all the way to the end. As you mentioned, Dante, this is a monumental commission to fuse two worlds that I think helped shape me as a musician: sacred steel church and jazz. And
Yeah.
so to be able to fuse these two together, and to be able to have a hand on something that I think, not because I'm playing on it, but just because of the body of work, I think years to come, people are going to come back to this and say, hey, here's a turning point in
Mm.
music history.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's a great point. Because it actually is. I think the mere fact that no one from the jazz world did what you guys did in recreating the whole project is monumental by itself. The
Yeah.
fact that nobody, and even hearing um, other musicians say, yeah, we'll do certain things, we'll perform certain songs, but no one really has ever attempted to not only duplicate or try to, you know, replicate that whole project, but no one in the jazz world would do it. That
Yeah.
says a lot. You know,
Yeah.
it's different when you play a song here or there, but to come at an album the way you guys did it,
Yeah.
it
The
speaks
funny thing
Appreciate
volumes.
it.
about that, the funny thing about that was, it's. I'm sure they talked about it too. I didn't get a chance to listen to, but
Hmm.
um, as far as the feeling behind all of those pieces, right?
Yeah.
So we had to kind of convert our thinking in the beginning when we started trying to, arrange. Okay, what are we doing now? So in my mind, I'm thinking like, okay, call to worship. All right. All right, let's do a Jewel style type of song. You know what I mean? All
Right.
right, then we churching after that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Straight up
Hmm.
hardcore church, and then we doing like Fallout hymn. You know
Right.
that type of thing.
Right.
That's really what it felt like and what it is when you listen to
Wow.
the album, and that's what we tried to capture. So it's more so a feeling than theoretical notes and phrases and arpeggios and things like that. So
Hmm.
that's why a lot of people that try to recreate can't recreate because they're trying to get too close and don't hit it and
Right.
Right.
don't have the
Right.
feeling. So we were able to grab the feeling, and it was funny because we tried to do that at first, and I'm thinking in my head like, this is not
It's
going to
not
work
gonna
when it's
work.
trying to do verbatim what they did.
Right.
So I'm glad when I can't even remember who actually commissioned us. I can't remember who said it. Pretty sure Phil said, just do y'all, like Campbell Brothers. I want y'all,
I
to
think
do what y'all do.
and that's something that they did state. Him and
Yeah,
Chuck, they said that they came to a point where they were like, you know what, we'll never be able to.
No.
We can't.
right.
And
Man,
Yeah,
think McCoy Tyner,
hello.
Coltrane, Elvin Jones,
exactly.
Jimmy Garrison.
Hmm.
Garrison. Yeah,
Ooh,
Hmm.
Garrison. Come on, man. You
yeah,
naming Mount Rushmores for all those instruments.
That's right.
yeah,
And that's them in their peak of I'm gonna prove everybody wrong about what we can and can't do.
Right.
So
right.
they had a
Exactly.
point to prove with that record. You're trying to of course people can't tap into that. And then another side I think people don't realize is that doing the study of Coltrane and his history, hey, Coltrane's a preacher's kid.
Right.
So a lot of the music is spiritual.
Yeah,
And so that's the benefit that we have of being, so again, sacred steel or bump that, church boys.
Hmm.
That
yeah,
allowed us to tap into, which a lot of folks don't have that cheat code, which is,
Right.
hey man, when you got the IS is Holy Ghost and you're doing something from a pure place,
Hmm.
that's gonna connect and translate and transcend and
Every single time.
every single without fail.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
again, we are the whole premise was do it sacred still style. But once we started like reading the books and just started, I know I read the book and just like how he even got inspired to even come up with those movements and what they were actually speaking to. If you look at how the piece is laid out, it almost speaks to salvation too.
Yes, it
You have to
does.
acknowledge, you have to resolve.
Hmm.
Then once I resolve, I want to get saved. I'm going to pursue
Hmm.
to be saved. And
Hmm.
now here's the psalm of my salvation, speaking to how I've been. Hey man, it's right there.
It is.
So
yeah,
it's Selah, right? So
yeah,
um that's that piece, those musicians, and again, I know for me, Elvin Jones, like, dude, one of the greatest, I don't care what, forget genre, greatest drummers, period.
Yes.
Um, ever. Phrasing, veracity, all of that good stuff. To be able to just even sniff at that and for it to be received well from that standpoint, hey man, God is good, bro. That's all I can say. Because
Listen,
it ain't our own doing.
it
Literally.
reflects.
yeah,
And all that.
yeah,
That's yeah. God be praised, man. It
Yeah.
reflected on listening to it. And again, for any of you all that are listening to Dante's Harmony podcast right now, please go download the Campbell Brothers, A Love Supreme. You will not be disappointed. This podcast is being brought to you by B Apparel. B Apparel is a streetwear brand that is on a mission to remind, empower, and mobilize a generation to be who they were created to be. Be Apparel. For more information, go to www.beapparelbrand.com. That's BEAPPARELBRAND.com. Use the code HARMON21 at checkout for an extra 10% discount. Again, that's HARMON21 at checkout for an extra 10% discount. One of the things you all said that I want to kind of dive into a little bit is being your own musician. What I appreciate about both of you guys and how you contributed to the album, not only from a mixing and a technical standpoint and arrangements, but your musicianship, the spirituality that you bring into your musicianship, the originality that you bring into your musicianship. There's a lot to be said. We live in a world now where everything is, I don't know. We have YouTube.
Yes.
we have
Yes.
all kind of software out there, and everyone wants to sound like someone else and duplicate what someone else can do. But when you talk about somebody that is original, I'm looking at two originals right here. I mean,
Wow.
from a standpoint of your art, I've watched you both. Daric, you're a lot of the videos that you put out, man, geez, have gone viral in just your just some of the basic tutorial approach to the instrument and thumping and melodic, scales and different things. What I appreciate what you guys brought to the album is just that whole concept.
Yeah.
There are a lot of musicians who are going to listen to this, and a lot of musicians who are still learning and trying to find their way. What would you say to them from a bass player, Daric? In retrospect to approaching the instrument, you guys took one of the toughest albums, one of the most revered jazz albums. You made it churchy.
Right.
You made it yours. You took the bass part and you made it Daric's. How do you what would you tell someone in going through that whole
That's
thing?
tough. Only thing I really would say is, I mean, growing up how we grew up, we have a one up already.
Yeah.
So, to be different or to have that different sound, just solely by the way I grew up listening to music or hearing it, because, a lot of House of God churches really didn't have too many bass players. It was mainly maybe just steel drums or maybe still lead or rhythm and drums. So a lot of bass players weren't there. So you kind of had to fill in the gap, because a lot of times steel players would play the bass part or something, every once in a while come up on the top, blah, blah, blah. So you kind of had to fill in. So I almost felt like I had to create my own way anyway. Just from listening to different players and different steel players and different rhythm players, and especially listening to Phil.
Right.
When he was playing bass before, or even Daric, when he was some of the bass line, but people don't even realize or understand, Daric was playing some crazy bass lines on the steel.
Say that again. Say
like,
that again.
I don't think a lot of people don't really talk about that. Like he literally held down bass. Period.
On
the steel.
Fender.
On an 8-string Fender, held it down and did crazy bass lines. Some that I still literally do on our shows whenever we play. So, just the aspect of us growing up different, we have that advantage. And I always try to recognize that and say that, because somebody may be in a predicament like, okay, how can I get my own sound? And I've had this advantage of growing up the way that I grew up, and you may not have. So that's one thing I would say to that, to that point. But on the other end it is listening to other instruments, regardless of what, field you're in, whether it be, organ, keyboard. Once I started kind of venturing out, that was my go-to, like, listening to piano players, organists, not playing the norm, like stretching out as much as you possibly can, playing those types of lines, studying steel players, studying saxophone players, playing the lines that they play that may be impossible to try to play on bass, trying to tackle that. And I spent a lot of time doing that and trying to create my own sound and grabbing from here, grabbing from there, along with the technical side. I say this all the time. It's like, once you grab that, that Holy Ghost with the theory, like it's we have such a cheat code that
Right.
we don't even understand, and a lot of the younger guys, I try to say that, I think we talked about that before when we did the other podcast. And just, you already have something special. Once you pair that, with the technical,
Right.
is really no limit.
Yeah.
No
Just
limit.
it's just tapping in.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
it's tapping in. You're absolutely
100%.
right. We had that advantage in growing up, um, to be able to be exposed to that from an early age. So
Absolutely.
we understood what it was to go into that vein. But no,
Absolutely.
that you make a great point, Carlton. Same question, man. I mean, even from a drummer's aspect, and I know, Daric, you talked about the solo, man. Carlton, you gave justice. Jeez,
Yeah, he
man.
did.
Oh my gosh, like
Nah,
like for real, dude. Like just straight up, you for a good 3.5 minutes, man. You went there. You went there.
I appreciate
I,
that.
I
I
still
appreciate
I
that,
still have the
man.
drums behind me. I can still do a little
That's right.
something.
Come on.
You-
Come on, Don.
I
Come
gotta
on,
oil I
man.
gotta oil the vessel, but I still got
Man,
some left
listen,
in the tank.
listen,
Yeah.
man. You will
But wait,
forever.
it was funny, man. It was funny because they told us, was that solo that really that long? Was that 3.5 minutes
I
for real?
think
I
it was
don't, man.
about
I don't know.
let me
Well,
check.
actually, honestly, it was
Three
longer
three
than
minutes
that.
40 seconds.
I had to
Are
cut
you
it.
serious?
I ended up cutting it down twice. I'm not even gonna lie.
But they said, okay, get loose, and that's the worst thing you could possibly say to either me or Carl. It's like, okay, go ahead and take it. Take your time. Don't do
That's
that.
what they literally said. Take your time and like, okay,
You
And it's what it
you're gonna
is.
be in for something. Yeah, and that was the
yeah,
thing. It opened us up so much. It's like, okay,
yeah.
this is you. Do
Yeah.
whatever you would like to do, and that's just, yeah.
And I
You
think
open up a can of
that's
worms with
another
that.
thing that can be stated as well. Like when you're given the liberty and the freedom to
Mhm.
Yeah,
be authentically you,
Right.
and you tap in.
yeah,
Yeah. Nah, man. Well, one, I hate solos,
Okay.
so I'd rather have a song feel good than just be drums. A song with just
Mhm.
drums
Mhm.
is, I'm sorry, it's racket. I'm sorry. And what I mean by that is people can't hum. Most folks can't hum a drum part.
Right.
So, but you can feel and you can move to that. So
Right.
I'd rather it feel good than like be expressive. So in this day and age, everybody's hitting up YouTube and you can Instagram and TikTok a lick of the day and all that kind of stuff like that. But
Right.
like, what helped, what was my foundation of finding my own voice was my drum hero. So again, Uncle Derek, R.I.P. to that's my drum goat
Yeah.
to the day I go to the upper room. and
Mhm.
and then guys like yourself, man, Dante,
Yeah.
I never forget we were at Atlanta church and you showed me this Dave Wecko combination.
Oh my gosh. You remember that,
Man,
man?
dude, yes. That unlocked so much because I'm like, I'm hearing what because I had Back to the Basics and I had the cassette tape. I'm like, okay, I hear what he's doing,
Mhm.
but I didn't have the VHS. So I'm
Gotcha.
like, man, what is he doing? Like, I'm hearing it. And you were like, man, you doing that wrong. You killing yourself. I'm like, no, I'm playing it right. It's like, it sounds right, but you're not playing it right.
Wow.
And you taking those 5 minutes after church to show me that was
Wow.
like, achievement unlocked. I'm off to the races.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
and then other drummers, man, like Shane Lee, Ivan Shaw. I'm again, Archbishop Wayne Felton, David Kimbrough,
Yeah.
Terrence King, Cecil, Benji, like all these guys. Most folks won't know their names,
No.
but their
They will after
impact,
this.
but the impact that these men had on drumming, but for me, you all are heard. Anytime I sit behind the drum kit, you all are being heard in some form or fashion.
Wow.
And like Derek said, that's the difference. Like because
Yeah,
we
really
didn't
say
we
that.
didn't grow up with choir music all the time.
Right.
We had to find ways to be expressive, but not mess up the groove or the jam. So how do you do that to where you're
Yes.
being yourself,
Yeah.
but yet, man, I've been working on this thing for 2 months. I'm gonna throw it in here. And
Hmm.
hey, man, some folks may not know, or some folks may know. My dad was notorious for don't do that. Stop, play straight. Like I said, there was many of Sundays on that car ride home. Hey, that's your butt.
You had to hear it.
Dang. Yeah, man. What? So, so to even have that moment in time and space to even do that drum solo,
Yeah.
it was a combination of all those inspirations of church, and then all that time that my parents, both my mother and father, invested in me, allowing me to practice at the house however long I wanted to, and investing in my drum kits, and oh, I want to upgrade to this drum set. Now I'm tired of this drum set, and them
Yeah.
not saying no.
Right.
And then to my uncles always pouring in, to my great uncles pouring in, to all of my great uncles. My uncle David Hager, he gave me a key to our church, which was the ultimate cheat code because
Cheat
my
code.
grandparents' house was next door to the church. So he was like, all right, man, listen, if you're gonna be in here, he showed me how to turn the heat on, how to turn the lights on. So now I'm being trained as a deacon. But
Yep.
hey,
With
listen, I get to
access.
practice, but I got access. So it's things like that. And what I want to say is like, hey, young musician, build a relationship with for church musicians.
Mhm.
Build a relationship with your church. It's not all about a paycheck. Sometimes it's about the benefit of the relationship.
Yeah.
So if you're serving, hey, talk to them. Hey, can I come down here and practice? A couple of days out the week. Um, if it's possible. That was more paramount because now I'm not disturbing the family with practicing.
Mhm.
It's just me working it out with God. So all those times I would practice at the church, that actually got me comfortable to play in that room. So
Mhm.
when the opportunity finally came to play in service back then, I wasn't scared of the room,
Right.
because the big auditorium of Goodman Street is like, man, that corner, right? Everybody talk about that corner.
Right.
Corner was legendary, man. There's so many jams from that
Right.
corner. It's
Right.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
But to be comfortable being able to practice in that facility, like that helped. And again,
No.
playing in church,
There we go.
hypercritical, hyper critique anything you would do moment in your musical career because that's your family,
Yeah.
your peers, the person you're trying to impress to talk to after church.
Yeah.
So you got all of that happening in one setting,
Yeah.
and that might be your one moment to break through. What you gonna do with it? Outside of church, most times you're hired to be there, so they already know that you're good. But in church, you gotta prove yourself. You gotta, hey man, can I play the offering? Can I play the benediction? Can I just get on, please? And once you get a shot, all right, I'm gonna run with it. That's how you find your voice because, hey man, you got 15 drummers trying to play. So what makes you special? What makes you different?
Right.
And Dante, Daric, y'all can speak to this. I don't care who your father is. That made it harder to get on because your father was playing. No, you're not ready yet. Sit down.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mhm.
you know that you are. But they're like, no, you're
Mm-hmm.
going to really earn it. When you get on, somebody else is going to vouch for you.
That's right.
And that, all of that allows you to build your voice because it's not being handed or given to you.
Right.
It's you working at it. And the that desire to be better because I want my shot. All that pours into both as a musician. Now throw on the cheat code of being saved. Sky's the limit, man. And it's
Yeah.
not even about being
Right.
super spiritual. I know we're not talking about that, but I'm sorry. That's just the reality that's the reality of the situation. I can't take claim for my giftings that God has given me.
Yeah.
I'm trying to cultivate them and maximize them, but I know for a fact I am nothing without him and everything with him. So
There it is.
yeah.
That's
I
it.
couldn't have said it
That's it.
better.
That's it.
I
That's
could
it.
not have said that better. And you bring up a lot of points, man, and thank you for that.
Oh,
And I forgot all about that, man.
bro, telling you, man, I still remember the lick to this day, man, what it was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
People don't realize that, man. It's like those little moments that you just
Yes.
sit down and spend time. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Keyshawn Hunter, he laugh at me all the time, but it's this one time I asked him to show me something. He actually showed me, and it changed my bass playing. Period.
Wow. Just
Like
He
one
don't
little
believe
thing.
it. He still don't
he
believe it.
he really don't believe it. I know exactly what it was, and I literally could play it right now. But it changed my whole thinking of playing bass. Yeah.
It's the little things like that I think, and for those of you all that are listening to it, and you're a musician, do not take what you do for granted. and
Oh,
what
No
you
absolutely.
sir.
show someone
No
else.
sir.
100%.
Oh my goodness. I
100%.
mean, to hear
100%.
this even now in Carlton, what you're saying, Derek, when Kashaya hears this, man, he's probably gonna flip a lid, man,
I tell them all the
because
time.
it's the little things, it's the little moments. Like you said,
Absolutely.
Carlton, it was 5 minutes. Derek, I'm sure
5
it's about the
minutes.
same.
Yep.
Where he just took time out of his schedule, did whatever he needed to do in that moment, but
Yeah.
you're still reflecting, you still remember.
Oh, absolutely.
That,
Absolutely.
that's
You remember that.
that's important. And
Right.
sometimes even as musicians we feel insignificant. And
Mm.
I say that because as men sometimes we don't say it. We feel it, we won't say
Mm-hmm.
it, we won't put a voice to it. But we
Mm.
feel like we're not noticed. We feel like, oh, my time is up, or I'm not contributing this, and it's not that. It's what you've done. It's what
Yeah.
you're continuously doing. It's how you can give back, And when you hear conversations like this, it's encouraging to that
Yeah.
wherever you are and you've done something for someone, like don't stop,
No,
because somebody's
don't,
going to
man.
benefit from what just little bit you give them to take them over the top. So
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man.
100%.
You can't get with closed hands.
you can.
So if you're inspiring to be better, you gotta empty out
Hello.
so
Yep.
that he can put something else in there. So if somebody's asking a question, that may be your moment of God about to align up for you to get your next deposit. Let that go, release, share.
Yeah.
We are supposed to die empty.
Come
We
on.
can't take this stuff with us. So let's pour out as much as you can. You never know who you're reaching, and who that moment in time is going to inspire to do greater exploits to you.
That's right.
That's the legacy. That's the lineage. That's how you keep sacred still sacred still is what it is
Hmm.
because of people taking time here and there and sharing. Can you imagine if the previous generations never took time with anybody, where we would be at?
Right.
Oh God. Yeah.
I,
Like,
I, I wish I could do. You say that, Carlton. I wish I can do Chronicles. I'm a find the tape. I have a VHS tape of us in the choir room. I gotta
and
Wow.
Nashville,
listen.
Wow.
Me, Robert, Chuck, Phil, Derek, Ted walked through. Um, there was so many people. Andy, in the choir room, and you all. I just say choir room because
but we
that
know
was
what
our
it is.
spot.
Yeah,
So in Nashville, Tennessee, for those of you all that
don't know.
are listening and don't know, you're eavesdropping on in a very in depth conversation with some House of
Right.
God musicians who share some history. And in the General Assembly, which was held in Nashville, Tennessee, the musicians used to play upstairs near the choir stand. That was a whole thing within itself. It was just rock. It was a rock concert like you wouldn't believe every single
Barely Mike,
night.
man,
Come
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
all three amps lined up
bro, on
together.
that table,
Listen
On the
on
table. Yeah.
and the
Jesus.
drums trying to compete
trying to
with
compete
all of it
with one microphone with
with
all
one
these dudes
mic,
playing out of 412s
and you can't
Right.
see.
wide open. You can't see
Yeah. You can't
nothing.
even see.
Listen, in the era of, and I'll talk about me when I was playing in the 90s and in
Come on,
late
Doc.
80s. Okay, so in an era where we didn't have monitors, and I'm
No,
not
Right.
talking about sound monitors. I'm talking about video
Yeah.
monitors where you can just see what's going on. Everything devotional, praise and worship was downstairs.
I still don't understand how that works.
So when the song hit, right? I'm
you
the
got
drummer.
3 seconds.
I got 3 seconds to catch the
Three
groove.
seconds.
I got 3 seconds to lock the BPM in
3 seconds.
hard and
Bruh.
not drop it.
And not drop it. And you better drive that song where this what 4,000 square foot building can feel it, and you
Come on.
barely amplify. Come
Come
Way
on,
on.
more
man.
than that. Well,
I
And
don't know. It's
and
humongous
adjust to the steel player and musicians that are playing.
that are playing with
Because
you
the
on that
drive
night,
with Henry wasn't the same drive with Ted.
or
right.
Calvin,
Or
or
Calvin.
with Glenn,
Or
or
with
Chuck,
Glenn.
Right.
Or
Right.
with
or
Chuck.
Right.
with
Right.
Arbery, or
Or
with
with there
Lonnie.
you go.
Like, it was not the same,
It
man.
wasn't the
And you
same.
had, or the rhythm player that was playing with them. Because if there's Kenny or my dad or Alvin playing, their stroke pause. This was so different. You had to figure out how do you lock in with that. And
Right.
then, because like Daric said, we didn't have many bass players. So you come to Nashville, it's bass players. It's bass player times. You're like, okay, what is this now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're upstairs, and our refuge and our place of safety for the musicians was the choir room. So when we got through jamming, or when the preacher got up and we had a little break, and as a drummer, there was not a drummer who played in Nashville upstairs when we had upstairs when the music was upstairs, who did not sweat off of just one song. I don't care if it was a choir song. You was gonna sweat, because you had to play. And to be able to go into that room, which was most times, if not all, cool, quiet, you could hear everything that was going on, but it was like our little refuge. It was like our spot.
Quiet
it was
place.
like where the musicians came to congregate and get together. It was that era of getting mentoring, tutoring, music lessons. There were steels in that room. There were guitars in that room. The video that I have, I'm gonna find it, Carl. But the video that I have, Andy had his bass, and he was going around room with everybody. So Daric played. They were playing everything. Phil got it. They were playing Jocko, everything. They were just going off, and it was just like it was a moment. It was a moment where all the guys we were just in there having fun on a 4-string bass in the middle of service. Service is going on. Yeah. All us in there cutting up. But it was fun because it was our refuge. It was our sanctuary. It was the place we came to regroup, to refine ourselves, to get to know our craft better. Yeah. That if somebody did something that year that I needed to take home with me.
Yes.
Hey man, you gotta show
me that. Yeah. I need that.
I need that. Like
I gotta leave. You would leave Nashville like, yo, when I come back next year, I got something for them.
Hello.
And it wasn't a spiteful thing. It was just I don't want to be left behind. What it was, man. And that's what, man, them heydays. And again, not saying that their days aren't there for them, but for us, our generation, it was that, man. You looked forward to coming. You would come to day session just to hang out in the choir room.
Come on.
They having Deacon Union's program and some other program. Everybody upstairs chilling with Mrs. Winters or Lee's, and you up there just chilling because you were being poured into, and that was the mentorship though, man. That's that. Each one is teaching one. You have the generations passing down knowledge, man. Yeah. Your Uncle Anthony hit me with something, man. He was like, when you hit the drum, dig into the drum. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I get it. All the time I'm hearing all y'all say it, but to hear it from a bass player, like, nah, man, when you hit it, play through the drum like you're trying to go through the drum. But yet not break it.
Have you ever heard Anthony play drums?
I never got. I've always heard. I never heard him play drums or steel, but I heard he was cold. It's Uncle Anthony, man. Listen, like it don't shock me. It don't shock me.
Anthony was that guy. Anthony was that guy. Anthony.
So did he play drums left-handed or right-handed?
He played right-handed.
No, but he played bass left-handed.
He played like a regular right-handed drummer. Yes.
Okay.
But yeah, he played bass left-handed and upside down. So
but
you know the story behind that.
He's right-handed.
So you know the story behind that.
I know some of the stories.
So my dad wouldn't show him how to play.
That sounds like your dad, man.
So my dad's playing regular right-hand bass, right? And Anthony would look over his shoulder. Now get the picture. He's looking over his shoulder,
to
upside
see what he's
down,
doing.
To see what he's doing. So he played Daric left-handed with the strings flipped.
Genius. So he was right-handed.
So he's right-handed, but he played the bass left-handed with the strings reversed. So the heavy gauges were
on the bottom of his neck,
bottom of the neck,
towards his thigh.
Correct, and the light gauges are near his head. Again, that's that story because he wouldn't show him his hand. Anthony would look over his shoulder
Yeah,
but he
yeah,
was
yeah,
learning, and
yeah.
that's how he flipped it. And yeah, the story
Wow.
That's
goes.
crazy,
But
man.
Anthony was
That's genius.
phenomenal. Yeah, and he was that. His approach
Yes.
to the music and on drums, he exposed Anthony's contribution to me. He was my big brother. He was that uncle, but he was a musical genius. But he exposed me to the best
Yeah.
drummers
Dude,
ever. He
look
he
who he hung
exposed
out with.
he
Yeah.
exposed me to the best.
Bruh.
And so when I would be with them as a little 7, 8 years old, going to Saturday night sings, going to play for the
Dude.
Milton Brunson, going to play for Clay Evans, going to play for whoever. There was Billy Carson and the Carson Singers.
I heard
All
of
of them.
him. Yes.
He would take me with
Chicago
him,
through and through.
and Anthony could do everything that everyone in the band was supposed to do fluently. Whether it was keys, he couldn't. If he couldn't play exactly, he knew the chord.
Right.
He knew the passing tone. He knew whatever it
Right.
was he needed to do.
Mhm.
On drums, Anthony was sick.
Dude, man.
Anthony taught me how to do triplets. Carl. Anthony was the one who taught me quad.
Wow.
He taught me quads and triplets.
Yes,
Him and my
sir.
Uncle Rodney.
Yes,
And
Rodney. Hey, big ups, Uncle Rodney.
Uncle Rodney's a beast, and
Yes,
and
sir.
shout out to
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
his band Sweet Diesel, who's doing great things. They taught me the ropes when it came down to musicianship and just little things here or there, but it was about the art of really being a musician. But
Yeah.
you talk about could play fluently,
Yes.
it
Yeah,
just
man.
amazes me now just thinking about it.
And to think, you wanted the approval of them.
Yeah,
It wasn't so much your peers. It was, if
Them.
they vouch for me, I
I'm
know I'm
alright.
good. I know I'm all right. So,
Right.
like I said previously, like if my father and uncle who started me in this whole thing called production, if they vouch for me mixing this record,
Mhm.
the world can't say nothing to me,
Right,
because not only are these are my musical heroes, and then they're my father and my uncle.
right,
So
Right.
I'm getting now, again, going biblical. I'm getting a father and that lineage blessing of yes,
Mhm.
you're right, and then I'm getting the okay from my mentors, and then they're my band members.
right,
So I'm going to hear the truth from one of those roles they play,
right.
and that's the benefit of a community of musicians. And I think that's what you heard, man, on the record. It's like we channeled some of everybody. So like on Pursuance,
Mhm.
I did a little Mac Dillard tribute in there a little bit,
Get out.
because again, yeah, man. So once Daric stays on the one,
Mm-hmm.
I go to Mac Dillard then, and the reason is because again, the drive just felt like something that's what Mac would be playing on in that moment, and that's what was channeled. So it was like, yeah, I hear Elvin, but at this time it's church. Who do I see? I
Right.
see
Yeah. Who do you
these
see? Yeah.
these
Exactly.
big center glasses on, the suspenders,
Exactly.
the short
Yeah.
sleeve shirt, and
Church
just right here, man, just all right.
church shoes button up.
Stick halfway through.
Stick halfway through. He
Oh
he
man.
hunched over a little bit, man, and that's what I
Tiny knot
see.
in the tie.
Say that
You
again,
got me
Derek.
picturing that whole thing, man. You got me
Yes.
picturing all of that, man.
But
That is hilarious.
that's what, when that drive got there, that's what's hitting my mind. It's not
Yeah.
okay, what would Elvin do? Nah, I'm past
Right.
Elvin. No disrespect, but like it's church time. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna channel who I saw play those hot jams in church
Hmm.
in those moments. That's what helped. Like, okay, oh man, this is something that Mac would do. All right, we're
Right.
gonna hit it. And then we call it the Frankenstein role, but that's Terrence King, man. It's this
Oh
one
yeah.
role that Terrence King would do, man. And it was the funniest thing. But when he would pull that out, man, you just knew, oh man, this jam, he about to kill this
Yeah.
jam.
Yeah. We in
So
it
it's
now.
it's those little things like that, man, that I think that's what helps create your voice. It's like,
Yeah.
don't despise where you come from. Like, yeah, so what if your church or organization ain't as big as Church of God in Christ or Full
Right.
Gospel Baptist or PAW? Bump that. You're placed where you are for a reason.
Absolutely.
Grow from that, and then if you can help, come back and help, because you were given talents and tools for a reason. They weren't just for you. We aren't given these giftings just for ourselves. We're giving these giftings and this knowledge and wisdom and all of that to share and
Right.
to help others. How are you going to help others and share? That's up to you, but we are given a reasonable portion of these giftings and talents to not keep to ourselves.
Right.
So
Yeah.
let's sow them some kind of way we can. And I think the Love Supreme project just spoke to a lot of everyone sowing into us.
Hmm.
And the world is just hearing the collection of lineage of information that's been passed down to us. And so now we were just able to put it together into, a nice little package
Hmm.
of, Love Supreme.
And that it's a beautiful thing, man. And for those of you all that are listening and you have not downloaded um, the Campbell Brothers Love Supreme, you are missing out. Download it today. Buy it. Don't just stream it. Buy it. And support the efforts that they have put on this particular record. Um, this interview is really going great. Um, One thing I want to cover before you guys go.
Hmm.
Uh, Daric and Carlton, you both of you are educators in your own right, and I want to talk a little bit about Daric first. What you do in as far as education as it relates to your art craft in your school. If you want to go in depth, and however in depth you want to go to that,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about your online school.
Absolutely. It's funny that we were just talking about, being poured into and,
Hmm.
not being able to leave this earth, with the things that we came here or that we acquired.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why I do a lot of what I do or put out a lot of what I put out because, you know, uh, just I wouldn't say accolades, but I want to be remembered as somebody that was generous,
Right.
with my gift, with what I knew, with my knowledge.
Hmm.
So trying to share that as much as possible or try to make it available to as many people as possible. That's my goal.
It's important.
Because I didn't have that, even in
Hmm.
growing up the way we did. I could probably name bass players in the House of God maybe on one hand, maybe that I knew at the time. So it was tough for me. I didn't really have a guide.
Right.
So when I would see guys like Kishaya and Big Al.
Big Al,
I would
Alvin,
see
Alvin
guys.
Lee.
Alvin Lee. I would see guys like that, and I'm like, trying to ask them questions all the time. Even Phil when he was playing bass before.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to give that opportunity to everyone that I have. So quick, long, well. I'll go back to how we kind of started, but I
Sure.
was doing private lessons. I've done private lessons almost right out of high school. I started teaching.
Wow.
So private lessons, it got kind of busy.
Hmm.
Wasn't able to keep up everybody and all the schedules. It got crazy. I was, working and had back to backs from 7 in the morning till 7 at night, literally.
Wow.
So it was tough to do. So, we just created a platform online to where everybody can kind of get in. We create courses, pre-recorded courses. We also have live stream classes.
Oh,
So now twice a week,
there we go.
and just every single week, it just weekly lessons, kind of going inside with some of the students and having video Q&A chats and working on their. It's a lot easier for me to manage that way. So now we're at a few thousand students or a few thousand members now,
Okay.
to where I couldn't do that before with just one on one.
Wow. Kudos.
So yeah, this is 5th year anniversary, right? Yeah, fifth,
That's
fifth,
big, man.
fifth
That's
Yeah,
big.
5th year anniversary. I mean, I wasn't expecting for it to get that big, but now that it's here, we're here. Like
Yeah.
we're in it now. So this is what I do. This is what I dedicate all of
Sir,
my
yes,
time
sir.
to. This is what pays the bills.
Wow. If
So,
if
yeah,
someone's listening and they want to go to that website or go to that platform, where would you tell them to go?
DaricBennett.com. To try to
DaricBennett.com.
make it as simple as possible.
And
Yep,
Daric is spelled
DaricBennett.com.
DARIC BENNETT.com.
.com.
That's what's up.
.com. Or you can just go on any one of my social media platforms. You can get to it from somewhere.
Cool.
I'm on just about everything. So
That's
yeah.
that's
Yes,
amazing.
sir.
And Carlton, you are a teacher in your own right as well. You're teaching at a university or at a college. Tell us more
Yeah,
about that.
so I am the technical director and instructor of music industry at Houghton College So I've been there. This is my 55th and a half year. I came in between semesters, how I
Okay.
ended up coming in. Again, a God thing.
Wow.
Wasn't even looking for this, didn't even know that this kind of field of education existed. Show you how God works, right?
Mm,
Um, so what we operate, not just what we operate in, we are a small Christian liberal arts college up in southwestern New York, and our department focuses on three components of music industry. That is the worship arts component, obviously the production side, and then the live production aspect. So
okay.
we cover everything from how to cover your house of worship, live sound. We deal with streaming and streaming production. So working on stream mixes, we help with that. We are literally in the middle of building out a state of the art streaming production studio for our students to work out of. We have a fully state of the art, beautiful live sound production rig that our students get to work out on and
Wow.
hone their chops, as well as a state of the art Mac lab for them to work on their mixing and production and recording studio. And so, what we offer there for our students is the ability to hone your skills in an environment that keeps you comfortable with who you are.
Wow.
And we
Makes
know
sense.
that college isn't easy,
Hmm.
and we know that college allows many times makes you or presents you with opportunities to forget who you are.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
we strive to foster a thriving environment that is Christ centered, but is also enriched and focused on giving a high quality education.
Hmm.
And so I am very proud of our department. Um, we have one of the highest recruiting departments for the whole college of Houghton College. So big ups for that.
Nice,
As far as a
nice.
recruitment class, and yes sir, yes sir, yes sir, yes sir.
Hmm.
And we're looking to do bigger and great things. And so been very fortunate and blessed to have been here this long, even though when you say it out loud, it doesn't seem that long.
Yeah.
Time is just flying by. But yeah, very fortunate to help teach. We offer Pro 2 certifications, which um, I'm thankful to be able to offer that to students. And then production courses, mixing courses, music business courses we offer. And then again, the a very important aspect that I'm very happy that we have is again live sound for worship. And I
Hmm.
think that's what's missing, especially for our black churches.
Right.
We don't understand the importance of sound. Faith comes by hearing.
Hearing.
And so if you aren't properly hearing the word of God, hey, let's work on that. Let's
Yeah,
resolve that, because why you can go to these secular events and these secular venues and they're investing in their tools to keep their parishioners happy.
Right.
Why
right.
aren't we doing the same thing?
Right.
And so what our college program is showing our students is that, hey, we have to equip ourselves as Christians to have the right tools in place so that when people come in, we aren't the hindrance of their faith being equipped and strengthened. We aren't in the way, we're only there enhancing. So again, very thankful for the opportunity Houghton College has provided me and offered and allowed me to be frankly to be myself. So
Right.
the program
Hmm.
is is mine in a sense, but it's God's, because
Yeah.
anything that we've tried to do or try to put forth, all the ideas literally come from him, because I can't think of stuff on my own, because
Right.
I'm not trying to say I'm that brilliant, but it's literally God. And I know it's God because the fruits of the ideas are being shown. And so I've had students that have gone on to be hired for world renowned tours for a lot of the
That's awesome.
great Christian artists, and some are now at mega churches as technical directors themselves, running multi campuses
Hmm.
from our program. And so that speaks to what God is doing with our school. And people are like, why you keep bigging up God? Because He's the reason why everything works.
Hello.
And so that's the
Right.
that's the main just there. So the beautiful thing about working in that department is I get to be around music 25/8 in
Wow.
some form or fashion. So I'm
Wow.
always able to work on music in some form or fashion, whether it's production or playing or mixing or whatever like that.
Yeah.
So I'm very fortunate to be in this position, and amen. Houghton College, www.houghtoncollege.edu. We'll be happy to help you. And I didn't even mean to make that rhyme. See how God works. But we'll be happy to help you out. And again, not saying I know everything and I'm the end all be all, but I would definitely like to love to help our churches on, their live sound production or even for their streams, because streaming is now a ministry tool.
It really
And
is.
I've seen a lot of streams from our people
Yeah.
that is tough and faith isn't being heard. I'll put it like that.
Yeah.
And so I would love to help out any way that I can. Carlton Campbell on Instagram. No, Carl D. Campbell on Instagram and Carlton Campbell on Facebook. And the website will be up soon, revising some things in regards to what we want to present in regards to the services and everything like that. But yeah, I just, again, I want to be a help to our people
Yeah.
where I can and how I can. So yeah, please reach out if you need help. Be happy to help and make what you all do for the kingdom um, more better suited for what we have to compete with in regards to the news, the distraction of these devices that we have now. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
Well,
it's awesome.
hey, listen, both of you guys, let me just say to you openly, I'm proud of what you're doing. I'm proud of you both in
Same
your
here, man.
efforts
my guy, man.
to teaching, to your contribution to music, to the art, to the teaching, to the the recording aspect of everything that you all do. I'm so proud of not only your approach to it, your attitude toward it, but you're black men. You're making things happen. You're in positions that most people wish they were in, to not only be creative, do what you want, have liberty to use that creative tool to create the world that you want and that you're looking into the future to make a norm. That
Yeah,
says a lot. And kudos to you both. That takes a lot of hard work. It's definitely representation of where you come from, your
yep.
heritage, your parents, and again the God in us. That's the one thing that's been very transparent through everyone, that God is central.
Yes,
He's
sir.
center
Right.
of everything that we do, and that speaks volumes. One of the last questions I ask all of my guests is, what if you were to write a book or do a movie, what would it be, and what would it be about? Right. What would that book or that movie be about? I know it kind of makes you
I,
think a little bit, right?
I can't really answer that because I think I'm still writing the story.
That's fair.
Um, and I pray that when the story is completed, that God is pleased and that somebody or people can be encouraged and uplifted and inspired to not be me, but to be the best them because of what my story outlined, good, bad, and indifferent.
Yeah. There,
Um,
there are a lot of drummers that are going to listen to this podcast, and they are playing their industry drummers, or they could be up and coming industry drummers. They're church drummers, drummers from all over. What bit of advice would you give them um, in their approach, or in a daily practice of being a drummer?
okay, first and foremost, all right. So as a drummer, your first job is time. So loops are cool. Metronome is better. The metronome will develop your meter in a way that loops cannot. Loops you can hide. Um, your timing can sway with the loop. You can get lazy because the subdivision, depending on how the loop is programmed, can let you cheat if your time is rock solid. And what recording will show you is that your timing will suck because you aren't putting that time in. A metronome, make that your best friend. It's gonna suck. You're gonna hate it, but the more you get used to working out with that, as a drummer and a musician, anybody, but a metronome. Sit with that thing. Feel is good, but time is better.
Yeah.
It's
That's
good.
first. That's first and foremost. The metronome. Second thing, don't close your ears off. Listen to as much music as you can. So whether it's the Dixie Chicks, Georgia Florida Line, Luke Bryan, right? You like, who are these artists? Exactly. Go look them up.
Yeah.
Whether it's Anomaly or Moonchild or, Charlie Puth, check out who they are. Whether it's Corey Wong and Dirty Loops, check out who they are.
Yeah.
Chris Benoit, Lionel Luque, check out who they are, right? Grow your ears, listen to other things, listen to other genres of music than your norm, because that's
Yeah.
going to help grow your voice.
Yeah.
And as a drummer, hey man, go back and study them greats. You'll be shocked. I'll say this, and what you hear in gospel drumming now, Vinnie Colaiuta was doing 50 years ago.
Hello.
Billy Cobham was doing 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Clark was doing 50 years ago. Steve Gadd, 60 years ago,
Yep.
right? Clyde Stubblefield and all those guys, 60 years ago.
Yep.
Don't be too high on yourself that you can't go back and listen to everybody. Somebody can show you something,
That's right.
whether they're playing it right or not. Always keep your ears open. Number 2. Number 3, just be humble, man, because at the end of the day, somebody's going to replace you. A younger, cheaper, cooler, easy to get along with
Right.
version of you is going to come around. So,
Wow.
are you a good person to hang out with off your instrument? Work on that. Are you a credible person? Do you show up on time for gigs? Do you come knowing the material? Work on that. Is your word your bond? Can people say, hey, he said he's going to do that, or she's going to do that? Can they count on you?
Right.
Do that. Because again, a cheaper, younger, more hungrier version is going to come tap you on the shoulder. And when they do, hey, ain't nothing you can do but acknowledge it. So keep that keeps me humble on the daily, knowing that there is some young whippersnapper in their gym hunting me down.
Yeah.
So that keeps me with my head on a swivel, so that one, I'm not settling on my yesterday. I think Giannis said it best. It's like focusing on yesterday is a pride of what you did. Worrying about the future is being anxious. Be in the moment of now.
That's good.
Take care of now. Take care of your time you have right now, because tomorrow isn't promised and you can't change your future.
That's right.
So work on right now. So metronome, open your ears up, stay humble, because somebody will be replacing you eventually.
Wow. Hey, listen, phenomenal advice.
Yeah.
So Derek, same question. We'll end from there, man. What contribution, if you were doing a movie or book, if you don't have an answer to that, what advice would you give bass players, musicians coming up? And yeah.
Just a little tidbit. The movie question is funny, man. I was sitting there thinking, I never thought about this, but I never really said it out loud either. But I always wonder, like those movies, like like Ray, like with Ray Charles, the like Temptations movie. What is the other movie? Cadillac Records,
Right.
like that. Those type of movies, like the perspective or the point of view from the band. Like do the whole movie, but have a member of the band be the main person. Like I always want to see that, how they would kind of interpret that, because you always see like the main character.
Yeah.
So that would be kind of fun to see a little bit. Now that I'm thinking about it, like just to see that role.
Yeah.
But I always thought about it too whenever I'm watching the movies. But the other thing, the tip for the bass players, one thing that I can say, so one thing I can say, like, how people say, less is more when, playing bass, like you don't need to play all of this stuff. Like that's BS to me. It's a place and it's a time for it.
Okay.
Because a busy bass line may be the time at that point for that, in a specific song, or even playing more. So it's not just, you have to figure out where it lies. Right. Because more sometimes is a good thing, but if you're just playing less all the time, that like, what genres are you going to play? You know, you can only go so far with that one genre. Like if you're playing something like Carl mentioned, like Charlie Puth, like a bass line like that, those are kind of, you know, those are interesting in sync bass lines, and they're kind of busy, but they feel great.
Right.
You know, so you have to know the difference between where to use it and where not to.
Right.
So just don't get stuck in that. Yeah, the less is more.
Right.
You know, there's a place and a time for that. So that's basically it.
I love it. I love it, man. Listen, I appreciate you guys, and not only for you taking time out to do this interview, but just your contribution to music and what you're doing in education in such a time where everyone is pivoting from the brick and mortar to streaming and doing live podcasts and live videos online. You know, we're in a different world. We're in a different world, and you guys are there. You're showing up in these spaces, and you're doing it with excellence, and that's commendable. So
Appreciate
kudos
that.
to you both.
Appreciate it, man.
Keep
Same
moving,
here.
keep pushing. I'm a fan, both of you, whether
Hey,
you know
man.
it or not. I'm always pushing and rooting for you
Yeah.
guys. So
Been a fan for years.
hey man, whatever I can do to support you all, let me know. I will make sure your link, both these gentlemen's link and bios and websites are in this particular podcast. Carlton, Daric, thank you.
Thank you, man. Thank
I
you for having
appreciate
me on.
I appreciate
Absolutely,
you guys
man.
doing this, man.
No
I appreciate
problem.
you doing it.
No problem at all, man.
Yeah. Thank you for being a part of Dante's Harmony podcast. Subscribe to our Patreon page for exclusive video content of all podcasts. Like us on Instagram, and be sure to like, share your comments, and review us on iTunes to get your weekly updates. Remember, trees don't eat their fruit.